Lewitt sent me this microphone for review, but as we've all seen before, that doesn't really mean anything, so this review is all my own. There has been so much advancement in microphone technology over the past few years, and frankly, I think it's mostly due to the oncoming pressure of the consumer brands. Look at what's being released by brands like Mono and Fifine, and you're going to see some sweating executives from the bigger names in the audio spaces. Now, for all you elitists, no, I'm not talking for professional applications. The Neumanns, the Sennheisers, or Lewitt for that fact, are always going to be safe in the professional spaces. But for the past few years, all those aforementioned brands, minus Neumann, I guess, have been jockeying for position in the consumer and prosumer sectors. But as more and more money is poured in to sate the thirst for audio gear that doesn't break the bank, that consumer and entry-level prosumer section of the industry is getting awfully crowded. Gone are the days where the pro brands can just dominate every price point, which might make some of those executives nervous, but honestly, it should only be good news for us, the consumers. This means more meaningful competition, more variety, more everything, which in the end brings down the prices of many different features. But it also means innovation. And that brings us to this moment, as I sit here with the Lewitt Ray, the latest from the company famous for their LCT 440, and frankly, one of the best microphone companies out there. No hyperbole. But is this a microphone with what they're calling autofocus for your voice and distance muting just a gimmick, or is this the next evolution of audio gear? Let's find out. First though, let's talk about the basics. As for the build quality, I'm pretty sure this is just an LCT 440 with a bunch of tech crowded into the body. Everything else kind of looks the same. In fact, if you put the two mics side by side, they can be a bit tricky to pick out. Of course, great build quality and probably one of the best shock mounts and pop filters on the market. Now, that is where the similarities kind of fall apart though. I'm pretty sure the capsule is the same as the LCT 440, but all the other specs are different. For example, the max SPL is a bit lower on this thing, by 9 dB. The Ray is also a bit less sensitive and just a touch noisier with the EIN as well. So you're getting a slightly different mic no matter how they may sound similar. I can't tell yet though. We'll find out in a few. Let's dig into these quirky abilities that this microphone has, and let's start out with exactly what's going on with this thing. So it has some sort of sensors in the front, and they work kind of like radar. Perhaps that's the reference to Ray? Question mark? I could be wrong, but it would make sense. Now, they're calling the tech Aura, and it basically reads where you are in the reference to the mic, and it uses that to control the signal output of the mic. Now, it uses that control to do two different things. The first of those is mute. Now, just the idea of an XLR mic with mute is pretty sweet, I'm not going to lie. Basically, a quick and easy cough button, which you do actually have on this. But if you hold that mute button for a few seconds, the mic will basically identify your position and set that as your mute point. Meaning, if you move away from that position beyond your initial distance, the mic will mute itself. So if you're within range, you can hear, but if you move out of range, you can't. So that's actually pretty cool. As for the mute button, this is what it sounds like when you're using it. Now, honestly, that could be a handy tool, especially if you're done with your mic and you can't be arsed to reach over to your mic fader. I mean, it's like 2 feet away. You can just push your mic away. Now, the only issue I have with this is if you aren't monitoring your input and you're actively moving around, you could be accidentally muting yourself. Or on the other hand, if you're trying to be muted and something bridges the gap, the mute can unmute. And well, that can be awkward as well if you don't realize your mic is on. But if you're careful, this is a pretty cool feature. Now, I should mention at this point, it isn't a complete loss of signal when it mutes. It's just more like a heavy reduction of the signal, like 70 dB. Oh my God, no. So unless you're as loud as a rock band, it is effectively a mute. Now let's move on to the next feature, and that is the autofocus for your voice. And this is basically a live gain control for your mic that is adjusted by your position relative to the mic. So when you turn it on, your mic will maintain a level for your voice, no matter where you are compared to your microphone. Meaning if you're a mover and shaker, it can keep your signal consistent, leading to less stress in post-production. But it also maintains your tonality, which is actually the most important part about this. So perhaps it's some sort of EQ control as well. For example, there's much less proximity effect when you get really close, and your voice doesn't thin out as much when you get further away. That is more than just gain working there. Now, it is pretty cool, and it's definitely a feature that I can see people actually using. However, like the mute, there is a possible shortcoming. And, well, that is if your hand or anything else tricks the mic into thinking you're closer than you are. Now, I don't know how bad this could actually be, but it could probably cause some drops in your audio as you record. So move all you like, but keep it clear between you and the sensor. Also, if you are in less than perfect environment, having the signal coming from your mic spike can have less than appealing consequences. But that's not really the fault of the mic, is it? And by the way, I've got actually pretty decent surrounding. Even my furnace isn't on. I just have one small fan on my light over here, so it's a pretty quiet environment. Oh yeah, and my cat's eating food because I'm shooting a video. Of course my cat's eating food while I'm shooting a video. All right then. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of whether or not this thing is worth your money, let's listen to how this microphone compares to the LCT 440. That's about the same distance from my mouth. All right. Of course, the LCT 440 goes for about $290 US, and the Ray goes for about $60 more at $349. Again, pretty sure these mics are similar, if not exact, on their internals with the exception of the Ray stuff that's kind of jammed in there. Let's see what you think about this side-by-side comparison though. Which one do you like, or do they sound the same? Let me know down below. I've actually been editing the video. You may have noticed I've been going a little off axis with this microphone. I've gotten so used to using a boom mic that sometimes you forget. You can't kind of... You do have to make sure you have proper mic technique with this microphone still. It's definitely not a cure-all for bad mic technique. Even if bad mic technique is just this, you still have to make sure you're relatively on axis to the capsule because it is still a cardioid. Okay then, gimmick or great? I'm not going to lie to you. When I first heard about this, I was extremely skeptical. I had gimmick written all over this. And to a degree, I think the mute by distance is still a little bit gimmicky. But the fact that you can just decide not to use it does make up for that. Also, I can see people actually using it, so that does give it legitimacy as well. Just be careful with it. Make sure you or at least someone is monitoring the signal. However, I am completely sold on the autofocus for your voice, and it's not just the gain control. If it were just the gain control, I actually wouldn't be all that impressed. The tonal control is where you got me though.
You had me at
tonal control. And that's what makes this such a usable tech. Sure, the sound of your room gets introduced as you move away from the microphone, but a little post-production can probably clean that up. What post-production struggles with, though, is constant monitoring and fixing of tone. Whenever you have somebody constantly moving off mic, it can be a real pain in the ass and sometimes completely ruin your audio. So for a podcaster, excitable gamer, or really for anyone that needs to put an experienced person on microphone, this thing kind of wins the day. And I think what I love most about this is it shows companies are finding new ways to make microphone technology stand out. It's more proof that we're reaching the limits of great sound at an entry-level price point. And companies that are realizing this are finding new ways to stand out in creating exciting and attractive gear that actually solves problems. And I know if you are a professional, you might be huffing a bit at this and wondering why this is all necessary. But over the past 10 years or so, the barrier to become a content creator has fallen, and anyone can become one now. Seeing stuff like this, though, just brings the barrier down even further, which we should all be excited about. So yes, this gets a big old thumbs up for me. But what did you think about this, the Lewitt Ray, though? Let me know down below. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.